Again, Plaid is a basically they produce a lot of commercial level products, but one of the products that, and specifically with us, the product that they produce is they're responsible for the bed spring. Like quite literally, as simple of an item as that is, that's the company that invented the bed spring way back in the 1860s. I think that's the right year, but it's a good ways back. And so these guys, they've been around for a long time, but what they do basically is they don't actually sell directly to consumers. They actually provide components, if you will, to manufacturers, and one of those components in this case is the spring. So they kind of approached us and had an idea that Mark Quinn, they're one of the guys that's over the bedding components group at the time, they wanted to kind of step into social media, and they wanted to kind of put out a series of viral-based videos and kind of put out content that way that would kind of drive consumer awareness to a new product they were introducing called Verticoil Edge, which is the first spring. It's basically a bed spring reinvented. It's the first time it's happened in a long time. I mean, the bed spring's been the same until they kind of relaunched this idea. Okay. So one of the things that we talked to them. Go ahead.
Okay. So you didn't go to them. They approached you. Why did they approach you? Do you guys have an existing relationship with them? How did they find you?
We kind of had a relationship with them, but we actually had a relationship on a prior video. Originally we were working on a whole separate video for them that was more or less just a sales video. And they knew that we have a very strong social media department and kind of have a very strong social media presence, and they kind of caught into that. Paired with our company is a film production company that specializes literally in low-budget indie and short and webisodic content. So when they kind of saw those assets together, they realized that we had this multifaceted approach, if you will, that gave them the best bang for their buck. So at that point, the pitch for us became, hey, we would like to do a web series based on your spring because it's a perfect platform, if you will, to launch into it.
Okay, so when they contacted you looking for more ways to publicize their bed spring, you suggested doing a web series to them. Before this, did they even know what a web series is?
They had some familiarity, but it was with the bigger groups like the Guild and the IKEA one, Easy to Assemble, whatever it is. They knew those two pieces, but they weren't totally familiar with how it could integrate to their company. And that's the real key in making a pitch. The key to make the pitch is explaining to your potential client or sponsor, if you will, how you can make it integrate with their product, service, solution, whatever they happen to have. That's where the difference stands out.
Okay, so they came up to you, as a brand. They're a brand. You have an existing relationship with them. They came up to you and said, okay, help us, find creative ways to publicize this. And then you pitched the web series idea to them. Now, did they ask you any sort of, like metrics and measurements and, like the little crazy things like that?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the first things in our initial pitch, the first thing we approached them with was coming to them with numbers. And then on the back end, we told them that we would provide them with the benchmarkable data that they would need to show results, right? So their results aren't direct sales. Their results are in direct conversions, meaning more and more dealers, if you will, switching over to carrying their brand of springs in their mattresses. Okay.
So when you say a benchmark data, what does that mean? Well, what does that entail?
Well, part of it has to go with, and this goes also to our social media director, but part of it goes into, it's not just numbers in the sense of just views, it's active views, meaning how many engagement, in the industry they call it impressions, but how many engagement moments were there, not just with people watching the webisodes, but how much can we introduce their brand in each one of those engagement periods. So for every view that we get, if their brand is introduced, at least in that webisodic content, enough, not where it's preaching, but it's enough for them to see it.
Right. Okay, so, oh man, this is such a good interview. Okay, so the web series is out. Now, as far as like return on investment goes, okay, did they at any time ask you, okay, how is this web series going to help me sell more bed springs? Did you ever get that kind of question?
Absolutely, and
if so, how did you answer?
Well, the best answer that we could give them is that the content and the back end development and the creative strategy behind it, meaning the solution that we're presenting as a web series, that would drive those numbers. Now, the conversions will come. They have an interesting model where their conversions come directly to them. So if a dealer wants to switch over and start carrying Vertical Edge brand springs in their mattresses, they know about it immediately. So they can see a result. Based on the contest that we launched a week ago, they've already had, I believe it's 1 or 2 dealers, and we haven't even made a push yet, but 1 or 2 dealers saw the content, fell in love with it, and have already, converted over to using VCE.
Oh, awesome. So, okay, how many webisodes did they order?
In this case, they ordered 6, but we came back to them and said we feel like the story arc would be better for 8. In order to keep our viewers happy, which is important, but we felt like the better story arc would be 8 webisodes, if you will, in this case. And they range anywhere from, we don't get real strict on time, they range anywhere from 7 minutes to 3 minutes.
So, okay, so anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes. Okay.
Correct.
As far as the budget goes, I don't want an exact amount because I don't think you guys are allowed to disclose that. But
sure.
I want to know a range. How much did it cost for the entire package? I guess what I'm looking for here is each webisode that you made. What is the price range budget-wise, and does that include marketing, or is it just straight production?
From the straight production side of it, we could easily say between 10 and 15,000 per episode, and that is not back-end marketing. Back-end marketing is a whole separate strategy. So that's one of the things that the way we approach it is we approach it from both angles. So the webisodes have their own strategy of the story is what drives it, and then the back-end marketing has a whole other strategy, which is that's where they push, and they do push and pull marketing, where they actually put information out there for you to respond to, if you will, viewers to respond to.
Okay, so now, on the low end is $10,000 per webisode. On the high end, $15,000. I just did the math right now on my computer. For 8 webisodes, at $15,000 per webisode, that's $120,000. I'm just saying this because I'm giving, just to kind of educate content creators on, the range of how much it's going to cost, when they go out there to make branded entertainment and what to charge them. So, I think that's pretty good. I was actually thinking it would be higher. I was actually thinking more like maybe $25,000 per webisode. But, I guess 10 to 15 isn't that bad.
Well, that's where the advantage of, and this isn't a plug against any other region, but that's an advantage of being in mid-Missouri, is that our rates are often lower. And
low.
So we have a paired relationship with the company. So the entire web series was shot on 2 Red 1 cameras. And then we also had a full grip and electric package. So there's a Steadicam, a full Steadicam, not a glide cam, but a full Steadicam. There's a dolly. There's a lot of production value. That was just one of the moments where we looked at it and said, hey, wait a second. If we charge them this much, we can give the viewer, at the end of the day, that's who's most important is the viewer and the client. We can give the viewer a higher production value, the best production value we can. We can squeeze every dime out that we did. And then we had a great team. So.
Yeah, so I know it's cheap, and one of the factors that attributes to that was the fact that you're in the Midwest. Because in LA, I don't think you can do that for $10,000 to $15,000. It's just too low for LA. But aside from that, I read online. I did a research. I read online that there was some sort of controversy with, and this is the second go around, right? This is not the first time you guys did this with them. So there was some sort of controversy on the first go around. About the web series. Could you speak on that? Yeah,
I can. Basically, in a nutshell, we put out the first series. The first episode went viral within 24 hours, but it was a lot edgier than we were, and we kind of pushed a little bit further than many of the employees that work for Leggett were willing to stand behind in the sense of like they weren't really happy with it. And Leggett's a really good company. They listen to their employees, so they said, hey, if they're not happy, cult of the customer idea, right? Your employee is your biggest sales agent. So they decided to pull back. From that, though, was a big blessing, and this is the whole idea about engaging and understanding how to talk to your clients. Those budgets were $5,000 to $6,000 an episode.
Wow.
And so even though it got pulled, we regrouped. Mark Quinn is a genius that works over there, and John Walsh. We regrouped with those guys, came back, and we presented a bigger budget and said, we're going to give you bigger bang, bigger production value, and a bigger story, and here we are now.
And they paid for it.
Absolutely, they paid for both. It was brilliant.
Okay. So, what was I gonna ask? So, okay. So, what is the name of this web series? What is this web series about? And where can the audience find it?
All right, great. You can find it at thevirginmattress.com. That's also the name of the show itself. The story takes place. It's about a young couple, a recently engaged couple, who is going to, they basically own a family bed store, or her fiance owns a family bed store, and our heroine, Grace, is trying to figure out ways of kind of like getting more people into the store, because the store is very antiquated. They've been running off the same old word of mouth, never doing even advertising, and so the story is her trying to come up with these various schemes, if you will, to sell more mattresses, and through that, where we brought their brand in is that they're the only store, quote, in our diegesis, in our world, our film world, that actually has coil edge. So instantly, we can incorporate it in, keep it fun, and we kind of go from there.
Okay, so guys, the website is virginmattress.com. One last question for you, Drew. Yes, creative control. When you guys came up with the storyline and the idea for this web series, how much? First of all, they own the intellectual property, right? They own the story to this webisode, or do you guys own the story?
They technically own it, but the relationship we have with those guys is a partnership. We're just as much affiliated with the story as they are with us. So it's a very that's another approach that we took. Is they're producers just as much as I'm a producer.
Okay, so from concept to screen, from the moment that you came up with the idea, from that time to the time that you published it on YouTube, how long did it take?
About 5 months. And and that's not counting production. We just wrapped a few days ago. But for 5 months from script, or from concept to script went through a pretty extensive revision process. Similar to if anybody's ever written for TV, it was very similar to writing for television. It went through, I don't even know how many drafts. I've lost count, but that's just the way it works. And then we landed on the screen. Some scripts got through a lot faster, but certain episodes were pared down a little bit than others.
You know what, Drew? Thank you very much, man, for giving me this exclusive. And I know that, I'm going to get a lot of questions. So there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to do another interview with you to just sort of like answer questions from the listeners or viewers of this interview. Okay, so are you going to be up for that for round 2?
In a heartbeat, man. In a heartbeat.
All right, man. Thank you so much, Drew, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Rich. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.